Things are about to get really dark and really disturbing in today's video. From a patient who pulled out all her teeth and ate some of them, to another patient that breaks their own bones for fun. Today I'll be talking about these and more only on today's top 10 list. Starting off this countdown, we have the teeth. The first patient on this list did something so gruesome to herself that you may just want to stop eating for a second while I tell the story. So according to the nurse that shared this story, this patient was known for inflicting harm on herself. She was known to rip out all of her hair till there was none left on her head or body. That was one of her habits. One day when they went to go check up on her, they found her with blood all over the floor and blood coming out of her mouth. The patient had pulled out most of her teeth, some of which she actually swallowed. The image of her just sitting in her room, bloody teeth surrounding her, has haunted the nurse ever since. Like, ow! And at number 9, we have the appetite. And guys, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Obviously subscribe to our channel because you know what, it really helps us out. So this next patient was placed into a hospital after suffering severe brain damage. She was so bad that she would tend to eat anything around her. She has eaten styrofoam cups, plastic cutlery, plates, and even her clothes. As a result, she was kept in a padded cell with absolutely nothing in it, or else she would try to eat it. One night though, she plucked out one of her eyes. When nurses found her, they wondered where the eye had went. But I'm sure you know where this is going. They later found that she had eaten her own eyeball. This isn't fake, guys. These are real stories. Coming in at number 8, we have Jane. According to this person that shared the story, Jane was a young lady that had a lot going on, but she wasn't diagnosed yet. The first night at the facility, the staff found Jane in her room in a puddle of blood. Turns out that Jane was picking at the skin on her legs. She managed to pull her skin up on her leg and was degloving her own calf. Jane also had other strange habits. Every night before bed, she would perform the same ritual. She would run from wall to wall, touching them in a crucifix pattern. She would do this for hours before finally going to bed. But one night, a worker heard Jane screaming late at night. When he went to go check in on her, she was standing at the doorway smiling. When the staff said, "Jane, what's wrong?" she replied with, "What makes you think you're speaking to Jane?" No, that's possession. Jane is gone. That's the devil you're talking to. In our 7th spot, we have the threat. Honestly, if I worked at any of these places, I don't think I would ever sleep again, especially after hearing this next story. So this next individual worked at a hospital, particularly with older patients. It was around 2:30 in the morning and the staff was going around making sure all the patients were still in their rooms sleeping. But when they approached the room of an 83-year-old woman, they found her sitting straight up in her bed, just staring at the wall. They walked into the room and told her to lie back down and to go to sleep. Then she turned around and said, "They're coming for you, dear." Then she started laughing, like she let out an evil cackle. Afterwards, she lied back down and said, "I'm going to miss you when they take you." Yeah, I wouldn't sleep anymore if that happened to me. Sleep? Yeah, we don't know her. Moving on, number 6, we have the photos. So this story was posted on Reddit by the user Ping. She told the story on behalf of her sister, who is the director of a psychiatric hospital. According to her sister, one of her patients would cut open her arms, legs, and torso. But wait, it gets worse. After doing so, she would take photos of her family and place them under her skin and then close the skin around it. I seriously don't know how the workers do it. Like, I would be traumatized if I saw someone do that. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the biter. Reddit user OmniChronos shared the story of one of her patients. So she worked at a juvenile psych unit, and one of the patients she had was very suicidal and distraught. Because of this, she would tend to bite chunks of skin and flesh out of her own shoulder. She had to be placed in restraints and her head strapped back because of this. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Apparently 3 years later, she was on a bus headed to an interview for a graduate psych program. While on the bus, she was approached by a nicely dressed girl. The girl asked her if she worked at a psych unit. She then went on to say that she was the girl that used to bite the skin off of her shoulders. She was doing completely fine now. Like, that's amazing. I'm so happy that the girl is doing fine. Also, it's pretty cool how they just randomly bumped into each other like 3 years later. In our 4th spot, we have the lost identity. This story starts off with a pretty dark backstory. So this next individual worked at the dental clinic of a psychiatric hospital. One of the patients that she will never forget is a man named Terry. Here's where it gets dark. When Terry was young, he witnessed his sister get killed by their stepfather. As soon as this happened, Terry took on the personality of his sister. He was 100% convinced that he was her. As a result, he would often dress like her. Even now, as a grown man, he would wear little girls' clothing. He would also cut pictures out of little girls and attach them to a string in which he would wear around his neck, like a necklace. Even though the pictures of the girls were random and from magazines, he was convinced that they were his friends. Terry was never violent at all. He was just simply a boy who saw a tragic death at a young age that literally broke him, and that makes me so sad. Poor Terry. Moving on to number 3, we have the carvings in the wall. This next worker was in charge of keeping an eye on a group of certain patients. One of the patients was a pretty shy guy named Tom. He had trouble speaking, so he often would just not speak at all. He had been in the hospital for about a month now and would often keep to himself. What's weird is that he would often sleep on the floor under his bed. Nurses just assumed he might be frightened and that he felt safer sleeping under his bed, so they allowed him to do so. One morning though, the nurse went to check on Tom and found him staring at the wall. His hands were covered in blood. Some of his fingernails were missing. They removed Tom from his room and she inspected the room to see what went down. The nurse followed the trail of blood to under his bed. When she moved the bed, she was horrified at what she saw. Tom had carved a bunch of drawings into the wall with his fingernails. The drawings were satanic. The freakiest part? Tom had written, "He's coming," on the wall, in his blood. Who's coming? The devil, clearly, so get out of there. In our second spot, we have the bones. Just when you thought this list couldn't get any darker, we got this story. Literally, I was scripting this while eating mac and cheese and wrong decision, stop eating. So this next patient had a tendency to harm himself. In particular, his habit was to break his own bones. Now, you would think that would be extremely painful, but for some reason, to him, it wasn't. In fact, he has broken his left arm more than 3 times over the years. Basically, as soon as it heals, he purposely breaks it again. And as a result, his left arm barely functions. When asked why he does this, he told the workers he loves the sounds of bones breaking. He also always has broken fingers and toes. He's just constantly snapping and breaking his bones. Now they have restrained him so that he can't harm himself. But still, I could never imagine breaking my own bones on purpose. It's like the scene in The Orphan when she like puts her arm in the if you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. And in our number 1 spot, we have the eyes. Again, if you're eating something, maybe just put your food away. Just wait until this video's done. Believe me, you won't have an appetite after this. So this story was told by a daughter whose mom worked at a neuropsychiatric ward. One night while she was doing the room checks, she came across a very horrific scene. She turned the corner and saw that a staff member was collapsed on the floor. She immediately started doing CPR and called for help. The staff member had suffered a heart attack after seeing what the patient had done. The patient, who suffered from severe postpartum psychiatric disorder, was just sitting on the floor with her own eyes in her hand. Yeah, she gouged out her own eyes and was just holding them. And while the mom was frantically trying to save her coworker's life, the patient just sat there calmly, smiling, holding her eyes. Alright guys, yeah, let's move right along to these comments to, you know, kinda brighten the mood, not be so disgusting. I'll be shouting out comments from the video Top 10 Dark Men in Black Encounters. Ooh. Lycan commented, UFO researchers is an actual job my cousin does. He doesn't tell me anything. I honestly thought UFO researchers just people that, you know, have a lot of time on their hands. Like, you actually get paid to do that? That's insane! Sign me up. Okay. G-Man commented, people, are aliens really real? Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. Well, Men in Black is a good movie, okay? He's hilarious. Nellie Rossiter commented, Lizzie is like the best thing ever. She always uses really excited facial expressions. Yep, that's me. Oh, it sounded like Raven Simone. Yep, that's me. Anyway, thank you. When I was in acting school though, they told me it was too much for the camera, so I had to tone it down. But now it's back, so. Alright guys, that's all the comments I'm showing out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya. I know I say it so weird. Particularly that. Yeah, that's how you say it. I go particularly. Even my mom called me out when she saw one of my videos. She's like, I was watching your videos and you said it so weird. Thanks, Mom. Okay, anyway. Penitentiary. That's another one again. It's the raries. Nellie Rossiter commented, Lindsay is like the best thing ever. She always uses really excited facial, I can't speak. Yeah.